who is our guest speaker today. Thank you for coming, Christy.
Thanks for having me.
So, yeah, our topic for today was a little bit about life-work balance and finding balance in life and finding your own path and all of that good sort of stuff. And when we were talking about this, I was like, oh my God, I know the perfect person who should come in and talk to this, because Christy and I go back 10 years, I think. This is how I describe Christy to a lot of my friends, is I say, you know, Christy was this uber mega high-powered executive who always came to the office completely put together, and I was completely jealous, and she was on this really hardcore career track. And then she showed up at the office one day and she said, well, I'm leaving my job and I'm going to go to India and I'm going to build schools, and then I'm going to go somewhere else and we're not going to speak for like 6 months or something crazy. And it completely blew mine and pretty much everybody who knew her's minds. And this was, probably 6 years ago?
2005.
Yeah. Gosh, even longer than that. I can't count anymore. This was a long time ago, and we all expected her to come back and be super fabulous, corporate, awesome executive Christy Foley again, and she had completely transformed herself, and I think she's got an amazing story to tell that I hope she's going to tell all of you today about what is balance, what is life, and what does success look like, and how you can create your own path. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, and thank you, Joanna. This actually came about, we had a dinner party at my house, and I invited a bunch of women I worked with at CNET when I left this job. And so we were all, what have you been doing, what have you been doing? And it was amazing because it seemed like no time passed, and then 7 years had passed. And Joanna just looks at me and says, you need to come speak at my company. I'm like, why? So I'm really happy to be here today, so thank you, and it's fun to share stories with people. So she's right for me. I was, I guess, living the life, as a lot of people would call it. I had a fantastic job. I loved where I worked. I loved the team I worked with. I had a great boyfriend. I just bought a house in the city, and great dog. Actually, I think he was on the out at that point. But you know, great family, great life. And I remember coming home one night, and I think I was out to dinner or something, and it was this really still night in the city, and I was out on my deck, and I just kind of was looking up, and I'm like, really? Like, now what? I mean, what else? I mean, I could have a kid, but what else? I think I've kind of done it, and I still don't feel accomplished or fulfilled, or there's just this void of, there's got to be more than what I'm doing here. And it's not that anything was bad. So I think that was the start for me, and I don't know where that came from, but I'm so grateful for that moment. It was just, you know, in retrospect, I realize now I was living the expectations and the definition of success of other people, of society, of Us Magazine, of my boss, of the school I went to, of my parents, and all of these things that tell us, like, if you have this, it's success. And I never really stopped and said, well, God, what the hell do I want to do in life? And I mean, there's so many moments. I have to tell this one because I know a few people that love shoes here. But I mean, I remember being on a business trip in New York, and I had the afternoon free, and I was like, ooh, where's the Manola Blahnik store? And it was during the Sex and the City time. I did not own a pair, and I just thought, oh, check mark, I made it. I can walk into a Manola Blahnik store and buy a pair of shoes. And I was like, I don't, you know, now I just laugh at it, because I'm like, I don't care about that. But it was so ingrained in me what was important, and having the office that was a certain size, and getting the CMO title. And so the reality was, I was walking out of my office every day, and I would get through those glass doors and take the biggest breath I could take of fresh air. And it was just trying to get rid of this basketball that was in my throat of, you know, I think anxiety and just stress of trying to keep up and pretending like I knew everything when I really didn't know a ton. I didn't even know what I wanted as the most basic needs of my life.
So then, sorry, I muted myself. So then you left us and vanished. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I left. I was recently at the Dreamforce conference. I think you were speaking there, right? And I was amazed that Mark Benioff brought Tony Robbins there. And there was 10,000 people in the audience, and he was there for 4 hours. And I just was amazed that this is a business conference, and there's people like standing up, jumping up and down, high-fiving their customer and their business partner, hugging and talking about love with them. I'm like, what is this? But one thing he said that I loved was, when you're in a rut, when you have this fear of moving forward, change your state. And so for me, I had to get really radical with that, and I picked up and I quit my job. I rented my house out for a year, which turned into 18 months, put everything in storage and had a bag, and ended my relationship and decided to go for 4 months to Europe. And I'd never done, traveling up until then was fruity cocktails or skiing. I'd never done the explore, never did the after college thing. And it was just opening up this whole world of discovery. And I completely disconnected. I didn't bring a cell phone, I didn't bring a computer. I did bring an iPod, thank God. Because the first day I got dropped off at the airport by my brother, and I left my jacket in his car. And so I'm like, oh, I gotta call him and have him come back. And I didn't know his phone number. And I didn't have a phone. And so just thinking about things differently, I'm like, oh my God, I can't live the way I lived before. And I didn't even have a quarter, so I had to go find someone, get a quarter. Then I had to, thank God I had transferred all my contacts to my iPod. And I had enough sense to do that and found his phone number. But it was just almost like the kickoff to, okay, we're gonna teach you how to live differently and live more present. And go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so going to Europe sounds pretty fabulous to me. Fruity cocktails and all. Like you took this first step of doing the Europe step, but it seemed to grow and get bigger every time we'd follow up and have a conversation. And there were many of us that followed Christy's travels on Facebook and on the web and all of that good sort of stuff. And like it seemed as though you kind of stepped your way into this new life as well.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you bring it up that going to Europe was so great and glamorous, but I actually haven't told the story until this year, and now I'm in a more comfortable place where I'm like, this is me, this happened. And I flew business class because I had enough miles, and so I get there in luxury, and when you land in London, there's this welcoming reception, and they have a lounge, and so they have a shower and internet and all this stuff, so I go there afterwards. And I was in there for 4 hours because I was so scared to leave. And I'm like, so I took a shower, and then I went to the internet, and I hadn't picked a hotel where to stay, and I was on a budget. I even got a hostel card. I actually never stayed in one, but I did get one. But I, wanted to have a meager budget and last for 4 months. And so I was sitting on the internet trying to find a place, and finally the flight attendant comes over and starts talking to me, and she's like, well, let me help you, and my daughter lives in this neighborhood, it's a great neighborhood, and she helped me find a place, and she's like, now you just go get on the tube, and my eyes went like this. So up until then, public transportation for me was a taxi. I'd never even taken BART here, and I've lived here for 10 years. I take it all the time now. But it was this completely going into this, all these unknown things, and I'm like, I can't take the tube. Like, how do you take it? Where do I go? I have all this luggage, and it was just super scary. But this woman was, kind enough and just kind of, you can do it, here's how you do it, and it was taking that step. So, this first trip, it sounds like it was glamorous, but there were so many experiences like that every little experience was testing me in my life. And and I relate that to any part of life. I mean, whether you're going into a new business project and it's like, oh God, I didn't do this, but I need to act like I know what I'm doing. And I think one of the discoveries out of this has been that it's okay to not know and to admit you don't know, but you'll find out and you'll discover it. I mean, think of all the new discoveries that have come. Pandora, like somebody thought that up and created something new that we didn't have in this world. And I just feel like we all have something unique to bring into this world. And I was living so much of my life trying to be what I was seeing and not allowing whatever was within me to blossom and be created in the world. So.
Yeah, so you talked about how 4 months translated into 18 months has translated into multiple years and now really your life. You know, what happened? You came back and then you left again and kept on surprising us.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that and the continuation of this discovery?
So 3 months into this trip, I ended up in Thailand, and to meet the boyfriend I broke up with, thinking maybe he was the one. So we met in the middle. He was in New Zealand. And while I was there, all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I've been gone for 3 months. I'm not going to be relevant in the corporate world. I'm running out of money. I better get a job. And so I just started emailing everybody I knew and saying, hey, I'm coming back in a month. What you got? And somebody we had worked with had just gone over to YouTube, which was before they were bought by Google. She said, call me when you get home. I want you to come over here. And I was like, what is it? And she was like, oh Lord, you've been under a rock. And it kind of freaked me out that, oh God, what if...
What is YouTube, right?
That was
the question.
What is YouTube?
That much of a rock.
Yes. So I came home and she said, you know, look it up in YouTube. And I typed in I somehow typed it in different, where it was a porn site. I'm like, well, Susie, what are you into? So anyways, I show up, and long story short with that is I came in to consult with them for 6 months. Somebody was going out on maternity leave, and she said, I want you to come and build up the marketing team and run PR. And I was like, okay, 6 months, I can do that. And I was in a space where I wasn't ready to go take something full-time again, but this was a great commitment for getting back into the world and all of that. So in that first job, it was amazing how fast I just dove in and was all back to the old stuff and working, 80 plus hours and, breakfast, lunch, and dinner at work and all the things we're all used to.
Buying Manolo Blahniks.
And so I started realizing, though, I had gained this perspective from traveling and said, well, wait a minute, you took this time off, and here you are back in this, and it's not really still what's feeding your soul. I'm good at it, but is it really all I'm meant to do here? And that was a key learning as time went on, was that because I went traveling again after that for another 4 months, and then I came back, and then I went to another place for 4 months. And it was this cycle, and now in retrospect I realize it was discovering that what are the qualities of the things that I am good at, and how can they translate into other avenues. Because for me, I knew I had other passions, but this was the easy way to make money, to be relevant, to feel important. And it started becoming like, well, hey, maybe I can feel those feelings without, by doing what I really, truly am passionate about.
So, I don't want any of you all to run off to any foreign places. You all have jobs to do, so please do not give them too much direction. I'm just joking. I've personally found Christy's story completely inspiring, and really I've certainly talked to many of the team here about finding your heart place and what it is that you do, which is really what I admire and what you've accomplished. But finding your heart place and traveling around Europe, for all of us, isn't actually a reality. And so I'd love you to talk about, if any of these guys wanted to be able to do this, like, what is the process in finding that resonates with you, even if it is, like, because the resonate with you might be, or might have been, oh, actually, I do want to be a CMO, and that is the path that I want, and what is that hard place for you? And I'd love you to talk a little bit about how you think about that, and what advice you would give to the people across the country about how they can find that for themselves and keep their jobs, please.
And to the point of keeping your job, so I still do a lot of the work I used to do, but in a different way. So I don't know if there's any gluten-free people out there, but there's a company called Mary's Cotton Crackers, and she, somebody loves them, and but sustainable, conscious company that's doing amazing work, and so they're a company I'm working with, and so I still do my work, but I wanted to find something that I was personally more passionate about, and that was one of the discoveries. But doing this, you don't need to travel around the world or even leave your office. It's noticing, when does your energy go up, and when are you excited about something, and when do you feel that within you of like, oh yeah, you just want to take a bite out of it, and when are you not in that zone, and just notice the qualities of what you're doing and how do those translate to where you can do where your energy goes up more often, because it's what you're passionate about, it's what you're good at, and it's your true nature. So, you know, a lot of times, we've talked about this before, where a lot of people, they do really well at something, and so they get promoted, and then they're supposed to manage people. And they're not necessarily people, but they get put in that job because it's the next step. So I think for managers too, it's really seeing what is this individual really good at, and how can they be the best contributor and help them grow in that way. Additionally, a big one for me has been the people in my life, and being supported in being my authentic self, and really just being able to show up. And you know, Joanna's a great example of that. She's always like, you know, you got to do this, you got to do that. She's one of my biggest cheerleaders, and it's but it's so important to have that, I think, in work, in your personal life, everywhere, because why would you want to feel any other way? And I would say there's been a big shift in my life over the years of this travel, where now my friends are worldwide, and it doesn't matter if they're right here or far away, but I know I'm supported, and same with the people I work with in business.
So, how do you, I want to dig into that a little bit more, and really the how do you do that, because there is not a person at Pandora who isn't going a million miles an hour at the moment. We are incredibly lucky to be working in a company that we're all immensely passionate about and is growing enormously, and so the pace is all systems go, kind of 24/7. And I know you and I have talked about this, because I've come and sat on your doorstep and gone, oh my God, what do I do? In how you actually think about, how do I put time into my life to think about these things, and to think about how do I even think about what is important to me. Because there's, I know I've had this conversation with a couple of you guys already, where you've said, God, just fitting that concept into my day. You know, did you start a journal? Do you write Post-it notes to yourself? How do you think through that? How did you take the time to take the time?
That's been a big, big path, big long journey, and for me it's yoga and meditation. And before I had done any of this, yoga, if someone said yoga to me, it's Bikram yoga down the street with all the sweaty people barely wearing clothes. And but along my journeys, I met somebody who introduced me to a yoga master from India, and took a program with him. And it was right before I moved back into my house in the city after 18 months. And I learned a 20-minute meditation, which seemed like, are you kidding? How the heck am I going to do that every day? And the instruction was to do it 40 days, twice a day for 40 days, to get it in your system, and then you can go to once a day. And I know I didn't make it through the 40 days the first time. But I could see changes in my life, and big ones, sleep. All of a sudden I'd hit the pill and I'd be out. And getting up out of bed earlier, which those were two really big things for me, is I never wanted to get out of bed, and I couldn't go to sleep. I was constantly, you know, thinking about everything that I had to get done in the day. So developing a practice, whether it's a 5-minute practice or a 20-minute practice or whatever it is, it has been key for me. Incorporating that into my life, when we talk about we don't have time, I can't even do what I do in the day. There's always time. It's just prioritizing, and I mean, we all brush our teeth, right? and we all make sure we get dressed, we all make sure we walk our dog if we have a dog. Like, there's certain things that are just musts. And for me, over time, I've seen the benefits of this in my life, and there's no negotiating in it anymore. But that's been a process of I think I did my first class 5 years ago. So that's been a definite progression.
Yeah, she's trying to get me to sign up for that. It's not working.
But even simple things are, you know, I mean, in your office, you could have, we're doing this right now, so what if you had here once a week or every day, you had a 5-minute or 15-minute session where you all came in here, or whoever wanted to, and just take 15 minutes. 15 minutes would do you wonders, and you would be even more, my experience has been more productive in the day and in my life in general, where, I mean, do you ever feel like you want to just walk out of the office and you take a deep breath and you're like, oh, you know, wow. And I was like that every day leaving my office. And so if I'm traveling, if I'm with people and I can't find the time to do that, I at least find, you know, before I came here, I sat in my car for 5 minutes. And it's just that grounding, connecting back into yourself, connecting into your breath, and being from that grounded place. And I think when we operate from that, life can still be fast, but we're kind of more steady in that fast pace.
Awesome. Before I hand this over to our room full of people, anything else that I didn't ask you about? I had my list of questions. I think I got everything, but anything else you wanted to talk about before I open it up?
Oh, there's so many things. No, we can open it up. And then,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to open it up for the room to ask questions. I'm personally fascinated by this. Yes?
Who was your yogi, and how did you discover? Who is a yogi, and what practice is it that you...
Okay, so for the folks that are in our regional offices, I'm going to repeat the questions that are happening here, but the question was, who is Christy's yogi, and what was the other one? What type of yoga?
Meditation practice?
What meditation practice do you do?
The yoga is called Isha Yoga, and the founder is Sadhguru Vasudev. He's out of South India. How I found him, I was on a chiropractor's table, and he down in San Diego, and he said, I said, I'm leaving, I'm going to London tomorrow for 4 months, and I don't know what I'm doing. And this is after YouTube. And he just looked at me and said, you need to meet my friend HJ in London. You guys are soul sisters. And I didn't ask him anything else. I said, okay. So I called this woman when I get there, and she said, you know, I'm having lunch with my friend Lawrence on Friday. Why don't you come meet us? I think you're supposed to meet him. I'm like, okay. So I show up at this lunch with 2 people I've never met in their like mid-50s to 60s, and we were there for 4 hours and just had the most fabulous time. And, you know, I think about that now. 3 years ago, would I ever go meet some random people that some random chiropractor I met once told? And that's my life now, is I will just engage with whatever is in front of me, because it's amazing what discoveries happen out of that, and what creativity, what new ideas. So anyways, in that talk, Lawrence said something about this person said guru, and I'm like, I was pretending at that time like I knew what he was talking about. And then later I was like, okay, what were you talking, who is this person?
Old habits die hard,
Old
right?
habits die hard. Yeah, think of all the acronyms in our industry, and oh yeah, I know what that is. What's that? You go Google it when you get home. Thank God for Google. Anyhow, so this man was in his 60s, and he was going to stay in an ashram, at this ashram for 4 months in India, and I just was blown away by that, because ashram to me, again, I was thinking girl in her 20s and spandex and doing yoga, and I'm like, he looks like tea and crumpets, little, you know, glasses, and I'm like, you're going to an ashram? So he started telling me about it, and he said, you know, it's just, and this is a person who has done work with Prince Charles, and I mean, he's got pictures on his website with the Dalai Lama. I'm like, this guy is, you know, a legit big time guy. And I'm like, you're going to do what? And he said, I've, you know, looked at a lot of different masters, and this guy knows what he's doing, and it's a practice that's worked for me. And so I trusted that. And then Sadhguru happened to be in San Diego when I was down there visiting my mom, and so I just went to the 3-day course. I had no clue what I was expecting out of it. And you learn a 20-minute daily meditation. And they have different things. They have another one that it's actually online. It's called Isha Kriya, and it's, I think, 15, 20 minutes. I've sent it to Joanna, and she thinks about it sometimes. But, and you know, and it's something that they have people that come in and train in corporate settings as well. So there's, what I do now is I do a little bit more in different practices now, and I do physical hatha yoga. But it's something I do every day, and it's like brushing my teeth now.
I aspire to be your Christy. I'm working on it. Working on it. Do you have any other questions?
I'm wondering if you go through this sort of introspection and contemplation about what is it that energizes you, and suddenly through that process you realize it's a complete departure from what you've built up your career to be, which sounds like you're still sort of in the same vein, but what about for other people if maybe they're like, oh my gosh, I'm in marketing and really I should be an engineer. Like, how do you, if you've already established yourself and it's been years, how do you reconcile that and like starting over? Do you just go ahead and follow that and go back to school, or?
I'm going to paraphrase that for the people on in the other offices. Just how do you start over again when you realize you're on the wrong path?
Yeah. And I would,
a different one.
And the short answer would be yes, you do start over in a way. But I do marketing qualities of work, and if the project is right, I'll go do it. But I would say my life is completely different. I would never go step back into the type of work I was doing exactly. And there's so many other projects that have opened up that I'm doing that have nothing to do with marketing. I mean, I think everything in the world's marketing, really, but. So yes, I was just talking to somebody yesterday who she has been an insurance broker for, I think, 30 years, and she's in her 50s, and she's been trying to get out of it forever. She took a life coaching course to become a certified life coach and wants to work with girls and that are kind of right out of college and helping them to really discover what they want to do with life and not be, you know, going to what society's telling them to do. And I've known her for a few years now, and she finished that class 2 years ago. And she's gone back into another job in insurance. And she keeps, you know, I just keep hearing the same cycle. But it's time, too. It's being gentle with yourself and not saying, oh, God, I didn't do the leap, or oh, I haven't done the yoga. It's like, it'll happen in the time for you. Don't stress yourself out about it and get, you know, so many times we beat ourselves up about things. But for her, you can see this longing to be something else and do something else. And I'm hopeful she's taking the leap this week, because she was really deciding I'm going to leave this week and just go for it. And she had, her example, she had a workers' comp issue and a settlement. And so all of her debt and everything is taken care of, and she has maybe 4 months of money available to her right now. I'm like, if the universe isn't telling you to just go do this now, I don't know what is. But I think it's a really big point of just, we're so harsh on ourselves, and to just be gentle with, and have a little awareness of it. Like, oh, okay, there's something else out there I really want to do. And I think if you keep putting your focus on it, which has been my experience, it'll show up. So if it's all of a sudden a class shows up, you may stay in your job and do both for a while. And you may also find opportunities within your job. I think one of the things I noticed in a lot of workplaces is there's so much talent that there's not a job for it. Well, create the job. Go talk to your managers, talk to the company about, look, I see this need in our company and it's not being filled, and I'm really good at this. And that's kind of how I operate now is, it may not be marketing, or it may be, but I'm like, your organization doesn't do this and you really need to. So there's, you know, create the opportunity that you want and it'll show up.
So previously you mentioned that you defined success by having the corner office, getting the shoes. How would you define what you think is success?
Now?
Yeah, certainly. For the offices, the question was, success used to be shoes, which I can completely relate to. And the group was, I know please note she wears fabulous shoes. I've also been shopping with her recently and she buys fabulous shoes. So I'm going to call an expletive word there on that whole thing of not liking wanting nice shoes. But anyway, the question was, how do you define success now?
For me personally, it is, I just have this experience, and it's living just completely, utterly in my core. When I show up, I feel it in my bones. I feel centered, confident, secure, comfortable with not knowing, and comfortable saying, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to be open to whatever comes in. And when I've gotten to the place now when I'm not operating from that space, I can feel it. And I feel small, I feel timid, and I feel not grounded. And I know we've all felt that. It could be, playing sports or playing, doing anything you're really good at when you're just like, yeah, this is great. Or, you accomplish some goal at work. And I was in Ecuador last month with an organization called Pachamama Alliance. They work with the indigenous cultures there, helping to keep oil out of the region. And I didn't even know, a friend of mine works for them, and she kept saying, you gotta go on this trip, it's amazing. And it just felt like the time, and so I went. And I was with 30 people who were just the most amazing, supportive people and team. And it sounds like a lot, it sounds like from what I hear here, it's a very supportive team. And it just was the first time where, for 3 weeks, I never felt out of that zone. And I came back and I was like, and that was the thing I said to myself, I'm always going to live from this place. And when I don't feel that, it's a red flag for something's up and to explore it. And it could be a 2-second exploring, but what's happening right now with me that I'm feeling, this way. And it's really releasing expectations. We have so many expectations placed on ourselves and from society, but also from within. And it's just letting those go and being curious for what's going to show up in my life. And, I'll show you a couple slides later of inspirational visuals for me, but I always think of a sandbox. And it's like, am I going to keep my sandbox small and defined by all of these definitions by society or myself, or am I going to just keep it wide open and see what is available to me? So it's not, and that there's no end game in success, and there's no end game in achievement, that it's completely evolving. And so I don't have a check, I did it. It's like, oh, what's going to be next? I mean, life's a journey. It really is. It's not a, okay, great, I accomplished that.
So we're going to see anybody in New York or Santa Monica who has any questions? Can you see any hands right around? We've got one. Leslie? You're going to need to unmute yourself. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
There's a lot of, all right. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I would think, I love what you said about getting to the airport, and I'm wondering how you went from such a structured life, or I'm sure it was very structured, to unstructured. Because I feel like we all live in such a structured life.
Yes. Do you agree with that? No. Thank you. That has been the journey for me, and that's what I called that day I was having lunch with Lawrence and HJ in London. We were all sitting there, and after like 3.5 hours, Lawrence looked at me after I told him, I just left my job, and I then went back to YouTube, and now I'm here again, and I don't know what I'm doing. And he's like, you're living in the life of or in the space of the unknown. And it just hit me. I'm like, wow, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And it scares the crap out of me. And then at times it didn't scare the crap out of me. And then over time, it just became a place where I am now, 7 years later, very comfortable with it. So it's a process, and that was the big part about being gentle with myself. So every time I went back to security, safety, comfort, I'm like, okay, it's okay. But I knew that when I was operating from a place of really being open really being vulnerable and showing my true authentic self, it was so much better. And life's just awesome. I mean, I just can't even, I don't have the words for the difference in how I feel when I operate from that place and how other people seem to engage with me. That I just, I feel like everybody I meet in life is so awesome.
I had a girl crush on you at the beginning of our relationship, and it just got bigger. I'll own it. Anybody else? Have any other questions? Yeah?
Thanks for coming here today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm also a huge fan of meditation and yoga. And I've done them off and on over the years. I'm lapsed right now. I'm curious if you, in your experiences, have seen men and women think about this differently.
About meditation or
no, about this unhooking, kind of, making big changes, going against the grain, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes, actually. I just came from a meditation retreat, and I think, just very generalization, but in my experience, men, the men that I've been around that are going through a lot of transformation, it's like, I think there's a lot of expectations. That's what it is. There's different expectations, I think, on men and women. And men, I'm the provider. I have a friend right now who's in Mumbai, and he was a financial advisor in New York, and he left his job, and he's now in Mumbai till the end of the year working on, meditation, pulling away. And he's like, but I got to get married. I got to, I'm not going to be relevant if I stay out of my job any longer. I got to get back to New York. And I was like, are you doing your practices? He's like, no. I said, just stay there till the end of the year. You're going to stay for Christmas. Just give yourself that time. And we just talked about it for a while. I'm like, what's going to change in 2 months? Are you going to be really irrelevant in your industry in 2 months during the holidays? It's like, no. I said, okay, so can you use this time? And so I think with the men I've been around, it's very like, I've got these very specific goals. And with women, I don't know. For me, it was just this, it wasn't goals. It was like I felt a void, a deep void in my life. And there was just something totally missing. And I couldn't understand it because I had everything I was supposed to have, except for the husband part, which my parents were bugging me about. But it was, yeah, there was just something not there. And so I think a lot of people come into it like trying to figure it out. And I think the quieter we get within ourselves through meditation and yoga, in that stillness, we start to discover what we are really yearning for. And it could be something like I want to get married, or I want this job, or it could be, I want to release a little bit of some of the stresses on me. So.
Any other questions from the group? Santa Monica, New York, we've got a hand going up here. Yes, Sarah?
You mentioned having cheerleaders like Joanna is important for your support. Did you receive support from people unexpectedly that you didn't expect to get it from, or vice versa?
Yeah.
So Sarah was asking about Christy's cheerleading section, and did they come unexpectedly?
That's been an amazing journey. Yes, so at first it was like, wow, you're going to do that, that's awesome. And then I came back and it's like, oh, wow, you're at YouTube, that's awesome. And then I went again, well, why are you going again? And then, well, what about this? And well, what about money? Are you going to get a job in it? And it wasn't from just my family and parents. It was really from a lot of friends that I was working with that were like, well, you can't keep this up. And it wasn't about like, I'm going to go travel, I'm going to go do this. It was just really about, I got to do something different because what I'm doing isn't working. And so it was interesting to watch people in my life change what they thought. Like I had one friend who, she just was so worried about everything, almost for me. I'm like, well, great, you've got that covered. I don't have to do it. But she's like, well, what are you going to do about this? And I mean, don't you want to settle down? And blah, blah, blah. And so that was interesting. And then I think, you know, the support has been new people coming into my life too, that as I discover more about myself and what feeds my soul, I'm meeting more people like that. And it's not that the other people in my life have gone away, it's just a different level of support. And the other thing that's been amazing, I started blogging, and that was in 2005, and literally I don't think blogs were a thing then. It was literally, I didn't want to have to email everybody at an internet cafe, because again, I didn't bring my computer. I love photography, so I was shooting a lot of photos, and I would literally go to a super slow internet cafe, upload my photos, and like, I can't keep doing this. So I started a travel blog, and over the years, I'd meet people and they'd get added to it, and all the people from home, and everybody was just like, God, I'm living vicariously through you, and thank you so much. And they would get engaged with what I was doing. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, I was back at home in Laguna, and a friend of mine said, what the hell, did I get kicked off the blog? Like, I don't get anything from you anymore. And I stopped blogging when I went to India, actually, because the journey kind of started going a little bit more inward, and I'm like, I'm not sure in that. And now I'm ready to. But so anyways, I had stopped blogging, and he was like, I counted on that. Like, I have 2 kids, I'm at home, and I love my life, but I was experiencing life through you. And so I loved that, because there was a couple projects I did where I went to Tanzania and volunteered for a few weeks, and I raised money because it was an idea of bringing my friends with me. And I'm actually doing that right now. I'm going to India next month and raising money for the school that I work with there. And it gives people that can't do that an opportunity to connect with something directly, a project that I'm physically going to be there. I'm with the kids, I'm taking photos, I'm interviewing the families. And so people here who want to experience it can experience it.
And one day you too could be the friend that goes, oh yeah, you're going to India again, no big deal.
I got here a little late, so I may have missed this, but are there any books that you're currently reading or authors that you seek inspiration from?
Oh my gosh.
We asked for a book recommendation here in Oakland.
I have probably like 8 books going right now, so I'm trying to think. But there's so many that I love. I read a lot of yoga and meditation books, a lot of Sadhguru's books. I love, what just keeps, I just want to say it because I love it, but have you read The Art of Racing in the Rain?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I just read that recently. It's probably one of my favorite books ever. There are, I can't think of one off the top of my head right now. I've been reading a lot about Ecuador and the people I went with there. So Lynn Twist was one of the founders of Pachamama, and she wrote a book called The Soul of Money. And it's about our relationship with money and this myth of scarcity that, we think we don't have enough. And, it really goes in line with a lot of the things that I was living in. So she talks a lot about the work that she's done and how to think about our relationship with money differently. So I've been reading that right now. And then a lot about shamans in Ecuador, because that's what I was doing.
So once you kind of discovered yourself and what fed your soul, what made you then kind of connect the dots? I guess this is similar to the question that was asked earlier, but what made you connect the dots and actually find what program or what career path would actually do that for you? So how did you land at the sustainable food company?
So the question was, how do you connect the dots from this new life and new thoughtfulness through to an actual real job with the sustainable food company?
Right. And just that as an example, it's like the consulting with that, it's probably like 10% of my job or my life right now. Other things I'm doing, so writing and doing a lot of, a couple articles I'm thinking of, and developing a website where I will have stuff about books that I'm reading and things like that. And it's one thing for me that I've realized I'm really good at and enjoy is being with people and sharing and connecting people with each other and new ideas and experiences I've had. So it's things like this. You know, next week I'm going to another event and doing something similar. And it's just being open to different ideas of what could be there. You know, I'd done some work volunteering in Tanzania and then the thing in India, and that sparked doing some work with another organization in Africa this coming year. So it's really, for me, breadcrumbs, and it's also being comfortable with being a little uncomfortable. And I can't tell you what I'm doing after February. I know up until then, I have an idea on April, but going to this Africa thing, but I just don't know. But I have enough experience of living this way now that I know it'll show up if I really just am present and pay attention. And you know, it's the same in business. Like you think, oh, we've got to have everything figured out and planned out. And I can't tell you how many times I did at the end of the year in December, doing the whole year marketing plan for 2004 or whatever. And you go back and look at it, we didn't do all those things, but we came up with some other cool ideas in between. So, but if I was married to, I have to do exactly those and spend that budget, you know, you're missing out on all these other programs that could happen, or, you know, a partner comes in and wants to do some business with you. So it's the same thing with my personal life. And I think that was the other thing, is that I realized it's not, I don't have a work life, I don't have a personal life, this is life. And I can show up completely authentic as myself in every situation. And it's just a more profound way for me of living.
So we've got time for one more question, and then we've got a little parting exercise type thing. Is that good?
I think I might be on the same page as you. I was going to ask to see like 5 minutes of what you kind of do, your prep or meditation for those who have never done it before.
Nice segue.
Not quite what we were doing, but that's fair. Or they were asking what do you do for prep for your med? What did you do when you were prepping for meditation in your car before you came upstairs?
Oh, in my car.
Wherever.
Or just in general, like when you go to meditate. I've never meditated before, but I'm interested in like what I would even do to.
Well, you know, actually, maybe we can talk. I can stay later and talk to if it's something your company is interested in. That we can have. I know people that come in and can work with your HR department and have, you know, a session and teach you.
Yeah, although, and I know you haven't heard about this because I'm going to share it with you today. Yeah. There's a website called calm.com, CALM.com.
Oh, yeah. You sent it to me.
Oh, I did send it to you because I thought it was genius. Because she's trying to get me to meditate too. But you go on there and it'll actually do literally a 2-minute with sound and lovely, pretty, trinkly water pictures. Kind of meditation thing. We'll just talk you through it. You can do 2 or 10 minutes sitting at your desk. That's what they do.
But it'd be great if the company does something like that for you guys. But also on your own, you can go to a website called ishakriya.com or .org. I'm not sure which one, or it's probably both. And there's I think it's 12 minutes. And so there's a video that kind of talks about it, and then you can actually do the process. So that's something anyone can learn and do online. What I learned, it's not something I'm not a teacher, but the practice I do, I can do anywhere on my own. My hatha yoga, I don't go to a studio, I do it on my own. So it's something I learned and I can take with me, and there's lots of different programs. I can send you some links as well.
We'll get you some materials.
Yeah, but Isha Kriya is a great first step, I think. Any kind of, you know, Deepak Chopra has the guided, you know, 10-minute meditations, or the calm thing that you sent that to me, the website, yeah. Anything to just get you to stop and be within yourself for a few minutes, I think is, I mean, ideally, we're meditative throughout our whole day and in everything we're doing, because I think what meditation means to me is being present. And when I'm all over the place in my brain over here and I'm sitting here, I'm not being present with you, and I'm missing out.
So you actually brought some show and tell along with it about how you get present.
Yeah,
and make you do it. And make
I'm a photographer, and I love visuals. So I brought you just a couple of my little inspiration things to remind you of, oh, a little quicker. Just arrows. So, you know, I live by this visual, is I can be in my comfort zone, which is really cushy and great and comfortable, or I can step out of that, and it is where all the magic happens. It's where there's creativity, there's where, you know, I remember the first trip I went on and the first time I had to go eat by myself at a restaurant, I thought I was gonna die. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to do this a lot. And it's amazing the people that I've met, and some of them have become my most dear friends, like this couple I met in Florence, and they're down in San Diego, and I spend all my time with them. But it's stepping out of that comfort zone and seeing what's out there. So, you know, change your state when you are just stuck and in a rut. This is my nephew, and so I have this thing called the theme song that when I am in a total rut, I play my latest theme song, whatever it is, and I dance around my house. I go for a run, whatever. And my current one's inspired by my little nephew here, and so I don't know how to play it. Whoops.
I'll play it for you.
Oh, yeah. It just gives a little second of, you know, this is the kind of thing that we do. Well, that's all right. It's just him dancing around is kind of cute. But, you know, change your state and just be who you are, your authentic self. I love this because I'm sure it means more to us girls than the guys, sorry. But it's like, unless you can be Wonder Woman, be your own Wonder Woman. So I love her. And, you know, live your best life. This is an Oprah magazine that I clipped out forever ago, but I mean, don't you want to be that woman in that canvas and have that be your life? And it can be like that all the time. When you walk into your office every day, it's like, you may have some deadlines you've got to meet, but how am I going to engage with those? And am I really being open to new ways of exploring the business problem, or, you know, it could be a personal thing that you're thinking of. Where do I want to take my next trip? It's like, get outside of that comfort zone and really have just an open canvas. You know, one thing I was, when we were talking about this, is I wanted to leave you with one thing, and I have a little kid, yeah, here, there. So, you know, who's played with Etch-a-Sketches here when you're a kid? Yeah. So Etch-a-Sketch, it's, you know, linear, black and white, and you can go left, you can go right, you can do curves if you're really good. And so you can think about your life that way, that it could be